The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council was a spectacle of opulence and grandeur, a space designed to impress and intimidate any who dared step inside. Dr. James Walker, a tall man with gray hair and weary eyes, stood at the center of the vast chamber. The eyes of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, over 300 alien representatives, all focused on him. He wore Earth's standard blue science uniform, and despite the weight of the moment, his voice remained steady as he began his address. "Distinguished members of the Council," he said, his words filling the immense space, "Earth is proud to announce the completion of our first seventh-dimensional vessel, the Archimedes." A beat of silence followed. But then, without warning, the chamber erupted in laughter. The sound was overwhelming, echoing off the chamber's crystal walls like a symphony of mockery. Walker stood, unwavering even as the High Counselor, a being of pure energy contained in a radiant metal frame, raised a glowing appendage, signaling for order. "Dr. Walker," the High Counselor's voice, translated into a tone of mild amusement, reverberated across the hall, "you do realize that even the youngest spacefaring races here have failed to breach the fourth dimension. And yet, you claim that your species, barely 2 centuries into space exploration, has achieved seventh-dimensional travel?" More laughter followed, this time from the representatives of the ancient races, the elder species who had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. Their crystalline bodies shimmered with smug expressions, their eyes gleaming with an almost paternal amusement as they observed the audacity of this human claim. But Walker remained silent, maintaining his composure, as behind him on the giant holographic screen, an image of the Archimedes appeared. It floated serenely in its dock near Earth's moon, a vessel of impressive yet modest proportions, only about 500 meters long. Its silver hull glinted in the light, marked by strange symbols and patterns that shifted when viewed directly. "We have achieved what we claim," Walker continued, his voice unwavering despite the ridicule. "The Archimedes has passed all preliminary tests. We are preparing for its maiden voyage next month." A murmur rippled through the crowd. A representative from the ancient races, one of the oldest and most respected species in the galaxy, floated forward, his tone laced with disbelief. "Impossible," he said, his voice calm but resolute. "We have studied dimensional physics for millions of years. Your species can hardly comprehend the fourth dimension, let alone the seventh. Your entire understanding of physics is fundamentally flawed." Walker's hand moved to his pocket, pulling out a small device. With a click, a holographic image materialized, displaying a complex mathematical equation that made the air in the room feel charged with tension. He gazed at the equations for a moment, then looked back up, meeting the skeptical eyes of the Council. "This is our breakthrough," Walker said, voice steady. "The Walker-Rhe theorem of dimensional folding. We discovered that—" "Nonsense," interrupted another representative, this one a member of a species whose intellect surpassed even the ancient races. "These equations are clearly flawed. Your primitive mathematics cannot possibly work on a galactic scale. You will never achieve what you claim." Walker, despite the weight of their skepticism, stood firm. "We will demonstrate," he said, surprising himself with the strength of his voice. "Earth extends an open invitation to all Council members to observe the Archimedes' first flight." The High Counselor flickered, his energy form momentarily pulsing with what might have been concern. "Dr. Walker," he said, his voice filled with a strange mix of caution and warning, "if you attempt to activate an improperly designed dimensional drive, you risk not just your ship, but potentially your entire solar system." Back in his private chamber after the session, Walker slumped heavily into his chair, the weight of the moment still lingering in the air. His communication device buzzed with a message from Captain Mark Stone, the commander of the Archimedes. "How did it go?" the message read. Walker typed back, "Exactly as expected." They laughed. A reply came quickly, "Good. Let them laugh. They don't understand humans yet, do they?" Walker smiled to himself. The aliens were right about one thing: they had underestimated humanity's approach to dimensional theory. They had failed to see why humans thought in 3 dimensions and, more importantly, why that was a strength, not a weakness. For millennia, humanity had been trying to understand things beyond its natural perception. They had built machines to see in infrared light that their eyes couldn't detect, created mathematical models to describe quantum mechanics that their minds couldn't comprehend, and developed computers to solve equations they couldn't process. And now, humanity had built a ship to navigate dimensions they couldn't naturally perceive. His device buzzed again, this time with an update from Earth. *Archimedes*, final systems check. 94% complete. All tests nominal. Dimensional core stable. Walker stood and walked over to the window, gazing out at the glittering expanse of the galactic capital skyline. The laughter would soon stop. Humanity was about to make its mark on the galaxy in a way no one could have predicted, and the galaxy wasn't ready for it. Let them laugh for now, Walker muttered to himself. In 1 month they'll understand what humanity is truly capable of. 5 years earlier, in the basement of Earth's Advanced Physics Institute, Dr. Walker had made the discovery that would change everything. He could still remember that day with perfect clarity. The old building's cooling system had broken down again, making the air unbearably hot and stuffy. Papers were strewn across every surface, filled with complex equations and rejected theories. Walker's young assistant, Tom Reed, had come to his office with an old, crumbling book in his hands. "You need to see this," Reed had said, placing the book on Walker's desk. The book was ancient, its pages yellowed and cracking from age. It had been found in the ruins of a forgotten library in Egypt. Most experts had dismissed it as nothing more than a relic of a lost civilization. But Reed had noticed something peculiar in its pages. "Look at these patterns," Reed said, pointing to a series of interconnected circles. "They're not just decorative. They're mathematical." Walker leaned forward, his tired eyes suddenly sharp with interest. "These aren't hieroglyphs," he muttered under his breath, tracing the patterns with his finger. "These are dimensional coordinates." That night, the two men had worked tirelessly, unraveling the mysteries of the ancient book. It wasn't just a historical artifact, it was the key to unlocking dimensional travel. The world would never be the same again. Now, as Walker stood before the council, preparing to prove humanity's impossible achievement, he knew the galaxy's laughter would soon turn to awe. And the Archimedes, and the humans behind it, would change everything. The first time Dr. Walker and his team had laid eyes on the ancient diagrams from the long-forgotten book, it was impossible to shake the sense of awe that filled the room. The equations were simple in appearance but possessed an elegant sophistication that belied their age. These diagrams were not just drawings, they were maps of something far more complex. They represented a basic understanding of dimensional physics that was thousands of years ahead of its time. Dr. Anna White, the youngest member of the team, had been the first to voice the inevitable question. How did they know? Her voice, usually so assured, carried a note of wonder. How did they understand something like this when we can't even wrap our heads around it? Walker shook his head as he stared at the ancient equations, comparing them with the latest research on dimensional physics. It didn't make sense. "Maybe they didn't figure it out themselves," he said softly, almost to himself. "Maybe they observed something. Something that moved between dimensions." It was a strange idea, yet it resonated with the team. For the next 3 years, the world of dimensional physics would change forever as they embarked on a journey of discovery, their days filled with long nights of research, failed experiments, and occasional breakthroughs that kept their hope alive. One of the key realizations came when they found that the traditional approach to dimensional travel, attempting to break through dimensional barriers with raw energy, was entirely flawed. The energy-based methods relied on brute force, attempting to tear apart the fabric of reality, but this approach was always destined to fail. Instead, they realized the answer was much simpler and much stranger. "We don't need to break through," Walker explained to the Earth Science Council 6 months before the Archimedes project began. "We need to fold. Like paper in origami." The room fell silent as he paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "The seventh dimension isn't up, down, or forward. It's in a direction we can't point to, but we can calculate." This theory was confirmed when, in the secure testing facility beneath the lunar surface, the team activated the first prototype of their dimensional fold drive. It was small, no bigger than a coffee cup, but its readings were unlike anything the universe had ever witnessed. When the prototype activated, it didn't just access higher dimensions, it used them as shortcuts through space itself. "We're not punching holes through reality," Dr. White explained, her eyes wide with amazement. "We're gently pushing it aside. Instead of trying to tear through the fabric of space, we're folding it, bending it to our will." The prototype proved the theory worked, and the next step was to build the Archimedes. It was the ultimate challenge: how to construct a ship capable of withstanding the extreme forces of dimensional folding. The team knew that ordinary metals would tear apart under the strain of such incredible forces, so they sought out a solution in the most unlikely place: deep-sea creatures. "They can handle extreme pressure changes," Walker explained to Captain Mark Stone during the ship's construction. "Their cells are flexible, able to withstand stresses that would crush anything else. We can replicate that flexibility for the ship's hull." By studying the biomechanics of these creatures, they engineered a hull design that could adapt to the massive fluctuations in dimensional pressure. The results were promising, and after several tests in the Kuiper belt, they were confident they were on the right track. The Archimedes successfully completed 10 short jumps between the third and fourth dimensions, each time disappearing from normal space for exactly 3 seconds, only to reappear precisely where they had calculated it would. Then came the breakthrough. The Archimedes was not just jumping between dimensions, it had stabilized within the seventh dimension itself for a full minute. This was unheard of. No other species had ever achieved even a fraction of this level of dimensional stability. The team's achievement was a moment of profound realization. They had discovered something the ancient races had missed. While the galaxy's oldest civilizations had spent millions of years trying to master the complexity of dimensional physics, humanity had found a way to work with it, rather than against it. The simplest solutions, it seemed, could be the most powerful. With only 1 month to go before the Archimedes' maiden voyage, Dr. Walker sat in his office at the Galactic Council, reviewing the final test results from the previous night. The data confirmed their greatest hopes. Humanity had done the impossible. The ship was ready. His communicator buzzed with an incoming message from Captain Stone. Final crew selection complete. Dr. White will be our dimensional physics officer. Reed has agreed to be our navigator. Walker smiled at the message. The original team was back together again, and they were about to do something that would change the galaxy forever. They had discovered what the ancient races had overlooked. The answer to dimensional travel was not in complexity but in simplicity. In 1 month, humanity would prove that the youngest species could teach the oldest ones a new trick. The day of the launch arrived, and with it came an unprecedented level of activity around Earth's orbital dock. Thousands of alien ships filled the space surrounding the moon, their designs as varied as the species that had built them. These observers, representatives of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, had gathered to witness what they believed would be humanity's greatest failure. Captain Mark Stone stood at the helm of the Archimedes, his hands clasped behind his back as he surveyed the final preparations. The ship hummed beneath his feet, a soft, melodic sound that set it apart from any spacecraft he had ever known. It wasn't the roar of engines or the pulse of power cores, it was a quiet song, a symphony of something new. All systems check complete, reported Tom Reed from the navigation station, his fingers dancing over the holographic controls. Dimensional fold matrix stable. Dr. Anna White monitored the ship's unique power core, her face illuminated by the soft blue glow of her screens. Core temperature nominal. Dimensional sensors are all green. We're ready, sir. Stone touched the communication panel at his side. Dr. Walker, are you receiving this? Loud and clear, Captain, came Walker's voice over the comm system from his observation post on the lunar base. Our guests are quite interested in your power readings. They say they're impossible. Stone allowed himself a small smile. Then we'd better show them that impossible is what humans do best. The massive arms of the dock began to move, slowly releasing their hold on the Archimedes. The ship's outer hull shimmered slightly, adjusting to the change in pressure as it moved into open space. Through the communications channel, they could hear the murmurs of confusion from the alien observers, as their sensors tried and failed to make sense of the impossible energy readings. A message came in from the Galactic Council. Warning, power signature is dangerously unstable. We recommend aborting the mission. Stone replied coolly, send our thanks for their concern. Inform them that everything is operating exactly as designed. The Archimedes slowly began to move forward. Its hull shimmered and shifted in ways that defied understanding, its strange patterns growing more visible with every passing moment. The alien vessels kept their distance, their sensors likely screaming warnings about the impossible energy readings emanating from the ship. But to Captain Stone and his crew there was no doubt. They were about to show the galaxy that humanity had accomplished the impossible, and they were just getting started. As the human vessel Archimedes powered up its dimensional drive, the quiet hum of the ship gradually grew louder. Dr. Anna White, standing at the heart of the bridge, turned to the crew, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the instruments in front of her. Dimensional drive spinning up, she announced, her voice steady and calm despite the overwhelming task ahead. First stage fold beginning in 30 seconds. Captain Mark Stone, standing at the front of the bridge, opened a communication channel to all the observing ships in the surrounding space. The Galactic Council, along with representatives from hundreds of advanced alien races, had gathered to watch humanity's most ambitious project unfold. Their skepticism had turned to mockery, but now it was time to prove them wrong. This is Captain Stone of the Earth vessel Archimedes, he said, his voice calm but firm. We recommend all ships maintain their current distance. What you're about to see may be surprising. The bridge crew worked with intense focus. This was not merely a test flight, it was humanity's chance to demonstrate its strength, its ingenuity, and its place in the universe. The eyes of the galaxy were upon them, and they knew the significance of this moment. Every move was deliberate, every action calculated. Reed, the ship's navigator, sat at his console, his hands steady as he manipulated the complex controls. His mind, sharp and quick, plotted their course through dimensions that human minds couldn't even begin to perceive. Despite the advanced nature of the technology, his calculations felt intuitive, as though the language of the universe itself was written in his blood. 10 seconds, Dr. White called out. The quiet song of the Archimedes seemed to reach a new pitch as the ship's systems hummed in unison. 5 seconds. The hull's strange patterns began to shift more rapidly, responding to the incoming dimensional fold. 3. The space surrounding the Archimedes began to bend, a distortion of the fabric of reality itself. 2. Several alien ships, sensing the impending energy shift, backed away further, their sensors likely unable to handle the complexity of what was about to occur. 1. The song of the ship reached its peak. Initiating dimensional fold, Captain Stone announced, his voice steady despite the enormity of the moment. In that instant, space around the Archimedes rippled, like water disturbed by a stone. For a brief, fleeting moment, every observer in the galaxy seemed to see the Archimedes from every possible angle at once, a cosmic illusion that left even the most seasoned alien onlookers speechless. Then, with a flash that was not quite light, the ship disappeared. But it wasn't gone. Through the special viewers provided to the alien observers, the Archimedes could still be seen. The ship now sailed smoothly through the higher dimensions, moving in ways that should have been impossible, leaving behind trails of perfect mathematics, as if the very structure of the universe was being rewritten in its wake. The ship's movements were a dance, effortless yet sublime, as it traversed the unimaginable space of the seventh dimension. All systems nominal, Dr. White reported, her voice steady despite the thrill of the achievement. We are successfully operating in the seventh dimension. Stone allowed himself a smile as he turned to look at his crew. He had seen their brilliance from the start, but now, in this moment of triumph, the depth of their contributions was undeniable. Each member of the Archimedes team represented humanity's finest qualities. Reed, with his intuitive grasp of the cosmic structures they were navigating. Dr. White, with her brilliant young mind and the passion that drove her. And the thousands of people who had worked tirelessly behind the scenes to make this moment a reality. This was their collective victory. Through the communication channel, they could hear the stunned silence of the alien observers. The laughter had stopped. In its place was something new, respect tinged with fear. The sound of disbelief rippled through the galaxy. Humanity had done it. Send to Earth Command, Captain Stone ordered, his tone resolute, Phase 1 complete. The Archimedes is ready to show the galaxy what humanity can truly do. The ship's song continued, steady and unbroken, as it prepared to move into the next phase of the mission. They had proven the impossible was possible, but the real demonstration, the true test of their achievement, was yet to come. As the Archimedes glided through the higher dimensions, the bridge fell silent. The crew, faces alight with awe, watched in wonder as their instruments displayed what they had never expected to see. In the seventh dimension, space itself seemed to bend and stretch in ways that defied their understanding. The human crew could see all sides of everything at once, as though reality had been unfolded before them like an endless sheet of paper. "This is beautiful," Dr. White whispered, breaking the silence. She was staring at her screens, watching energy patterns unfurl before her like a cosmic dance. The colors and patterns were beyond human comprehension, yet her mind grasped their meaning, understood their flow. "These energy patterns," she murmured, "they're unlike anything we've ever seen before. Colors that shouldn't even exist. But they do. They're here in front of us." Captain Stone stood slowly from his chair, his feet carrying him to the viewport. For the first time he was seeing space as no human had ever seen it before, not just forward but in every direction. There were no boundaries, no limits. This was the edge of reality itself. He could feel his pulse quicken, but his voice remained steady as he addressed his crew. "Status report," he said, though he could already sense the overwhelming beauty of what they were witnessing. "All systems functioning perfectly, Captain," Reed reported from his navigation station. "I can see everything. I can plot courses through space that would take years to travel in normal dimensions. Here they're just a short fold away. We can be anywhere in the universe in the blink of an eye." The Archimedes moved smoothly through the higher dimensional space around them. They saw streams of pure mathematics flowing through the void, trails of equations that seemed to connect everything in a cosmic web. The ship's hull, designed with cutting-edge technology based on deep-sea creatures' unique ability to withstand extreme pressure, caught these streams of energy and used them to maintain stability in this impossible space. It was a perfect harmony of design and function, a realization of humanity's potential. Then, without warning, Dr. White's voice cracked through the calm, urgent and sharp. "Captain, I'm detecting something massive ahead. It's a structure." The entire crew turned to look through the viewport. What they saw shouldn't have existed. A massive construction loomed ahead, an intricate building or station made of solid geometry and frozen light. It was clearly artificial but nothing like any alien architecture they had ever encountered. "How old is it?" Captain Stone asked, his eyes narrowing as he studied the structure. Dr. White checked her readings 3 times before responding. "According to our sensors, at least 10 million years old." "But, Captain, that's not the most interesting part. These energy patterns," she paused, a note of excitement creeping into her voice. "They're similar to our dimensional fold drive. Someone built this using the same principles we discovered." Before they could process the enormity of this discovery, the communication system crackled to life. The sound that came through wasn't exactly words, but more like concepts, pure, raw ideas poured directly into their minds. "The young ones have finally arrived," the thought voice said. It wasn't a voice, really, but a presence, a consciousness that filled their minds. "We have been waiting." Suddenly, the crew's screens flared to life, and new information flooded in. Patterns and equations, more complex and advanced than anything humanity had ever dreamed of, appeared on every screen. These were dimensional technologies far beyond even what the Archimedes was capable of. But surprisingly, humanity understood them. The basic principles were the same ones they had discovered. "We are the builders," the thought voice continued. "We left these stations when we moved beyond dimensional space. We knew that eventually, a species would understand. And now you have..." The crew of the Archimedes stood in stunned silence. They were no longer alone in the cosmos. The ancient builders had been waiting. And now humanity was ready to join them. "We're not the oldest, not the strongest, but the ones who can think sideways," Captain Stone said quietly, his gaze shifting between the faces of his crew. The crew members exchanged looks, uncertainty mingling with awe. The Archimedes had just demonstrated its ability to fold between dimensions, and humanity had succeeded where the galaxy's oldest and most powerful species had failed. And now, it seemed they had caught the attention of something far older, and far more dangerous. Stone's voice was steady, but the weight of the moment was heavy. "We're honored," he said, "but why us?" A strange, almost amused tone resonated through the communication channel. The builder's thought voice, now clear and powerful in their minds, answered with a calm certainty. "The ancient races have been studying dimensional physics for millions of years. They tried to force their way through the dimensions." The voice paused as if pondering an unspoken thought. "You humans, you learned to dance with them like we did." The thought voice words were surreal, but they were accompanied by a torrent of new information. Maps of dimensional space, locations of other builder stations, and technologies that could revolutionize humanity's understanding of the universe. The crew worked quickly, recording everything, ensuring that this moment, this discovery, was not lost. But even as they absorbed this knowledge, an undercurrent of danger rippled through the connection. The builder's thought voice returned, more urgent now. "There is danger coming," it warned. "Others who tried to force their way through the dimensions, they saw your success. They will not allow it." Dr. White's console suddenly beeped with a series of urgent warnings, cutting through the tension on the bridge. "Captain," she called, her voice sharp with alarm, "multiple ships entering dimensional space. They're ancient race vessels, but they're not supposed to have this capability. They forced their way in." The thought voice confirmed her assessment, its tone dark with forewarning. "Dangerous. Unstable. They will tear space itself trying to stop you." Captain Stone's posture straightened instinctively. He adjusted his uniform with mechanical precision, his mind racing. "Why would they want to stop us?" The builder's voice responded with a heavy pause. "Because you succeeded where they failed. Because you understand what they could not. And because the Archimedes is more than just a ship. It is a key to powers they have sought for millions of years." Stone's heart skipped a beat. His mind scrambled to process the implications. The ship was more than just a vehicle, it was a gateway. And if the ancient races had spent millennia trying to force their way through dimensions, humanity had found the way to open the doors with ease. The Archimedes wasn't just a ship, it was a tool of unimaginable power. The ship's sensors began to flash, warning them of the approaching threat. The ancient race vessels, as they were now labeled, were coming in fast, their forced entry into the seventh dimension leaving jagged tears in the fabric of space itself. Unlike the Archimedes, which folded through dimensions with elegance and grace, these ships were creating ruptures, ugly purple tears leaking dimensional energy, signs of instability. 5 more ships detected, Reed announced from his station, his voice tense. They're surrounding us in a pentagon formation. Stone's eyes turned toward the dimensional viewport. Through it he saw the incoming ships. They looked wrong, unbalanced, as though they were forcing themselves to exist in a reality they didn't belong to. Their crystalline hulls cracked and reformed constantly, as though the ships were constantly on the verge of collapse, struggling to maintain their shape in a dimension they weren't designed for. Message incoming, the communication officer announced. Stone didn't need to look up to know the message would be a demand. The ancient races were many things, arrogant, calculating, and fiercely protective of their knowledge. Text only. On the main screen the words appeared, stark and cold. Surrender. The builder tech is not for you. You are not ready for this power. Dr. White's fingers flew over her console as she analyzed the incoming data. Her brow furrowed with focus as the streams of information flowed through her system. Captain, she said, her voice tightening with understanding, I know why they're really here. The builders didn't just leave us technology. They left us a choice. She brought up a complex diagram on the main screen, a map of the galaxy that made the crew gasp. The builders had created a network of dimensional gates across the galaxy, each one tied to the understanding of dimensional space itself. These gates could only be activated by a species that understood the dimensions the right way, just like humanity had done. The ancient races had tried to force these gates open for millions of years, but now humanity had the key. They hadn't just stumbled upon an ancient technology, they had unlocked the doorway to a power the ancient races had coveted for eons. That's why they tried to keep humanity contained, Reed added, his voice a mixture of awe and realization. They weren't protecting the galaxy from us. They were protecting their power. Stone's mind raced. Understanding was dawning on him. The ancient races hadn't sought to stop humanity because of some misguided sense of morality. They were afraid. Afraid that humanity would succeed where they had failed. Afraid that humanity would unlock the secrets they had been unable to. The builder's thought voice returned, stronger this time. The gates were our gift to the galaxy. But they require understanding, not force. The ancient races chose dominance over wisdom. Now they would rather destroy the gates than see another race use them. A new message flashed on the screen, an ultimatum. Surrender or be destroyed. Stone's hands clenched into fists at his sides. This was it. The galaxy's oldest races had tried to keep humanity from the knowledge they had now unlocked. And now they would try to destroy humanity's future to preserve their own. Dr. White, Stone said, his voice cutting through the tension in the room. What would happen if they tried to destroy the builder stations? She worked quickly, double-checking her calculations before responding, her voice steady but laced with the gravity of her findings. If they destroy the builder station, the dimensional energy release would cascade through all dimensions. It would tear apart everything within 50 light-years, including Earth. The ship's systems flared with warning signals as the ancient ships continued to close in. They were charging up weapons with impossible energy drawn from the very fabric of dimensional space itself. Their presence was causing more tears in reality, spreading like cracks in glass, distorting space around them. They're powering up something big, Reed warned. Energy readings are off the charts. They're going to try to destroy everything. But then Dr. White's smile appeared. She had found something in the builder data. Captain, remember how the builders said we learned to dance with dimensions? She asked, her fingers flying over the console again. The Archimedes isn't just a ship. In the right dimension with the right understanding. She sent new calculations to the main screen, the mathematics simple yet elegant. The ancient races had spent millions of years building bigger weapons, stronger shields, and more powerful engines. But in dimensional space, power meant little. What mattered was elegance. And humanity had mastered that dance. Can we do it? Stone asked, his voice low but resolute. Dr. White nodded, her fingers poised over the controls. Yes, Captain. We can. Captain Stone studied the data on his screen, his eyes narrowing as the numbers and equations danced before him. He turned to Dr. White, seeking clarification. The ship already knows how? Yes, Dr. White replied, her voice steady with a hint of awe. The builders designed these stations to resonate with vessels that understood dimensional harmony. That's why our ship sings, Captain. She glanced at the readings again, fingers moving across her console. It's not just engine noise. It's the alignment of dimensional frequencies, perfectly tuned. Stone leaned back in his chair, taking in the full implications of her words. The Archimedes wasn't just a ship, it was an instrument, a vessel designed to harmonize with the very fabric of space itself. And it had already learned the song of the cosmos. Humanity hadn't just stumbled upon a new technology, they had unlocked a deeper understanding of the universe, one that had been hidden by the galaxy's oldest races. The builder's thought voice returned to them, calm yet filled with an undeniable sense of finality. You understand as we knew you would, it said, almost as though the builders had been waiting for this moment all along. Show them the true power of dimensional space. Stone looked at his crew, meeting their eyes. Each one of them nodded in unison, understanding the task before them. This wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a moment to prove that humanity wasn't just ready for the stars. They were ready to dance among them. Send a message to the ancient race ships, Stone ordered, his voice clear and resolute. Tell them, thank you for teaching us to reach for the stars. Now let us show you how to dance among them. The Archimedes song began to change. The ship's whole pattern shifted, its resonance becoming sharper, more focused, as if it was tuning itself to the very heartbeat of dimensional space. The ship was no longer just moving through space, it was in harmony with it. The Archimedes was becoming something entirely new. The ancient race ships, not yet understanding what was unfolding before them, continued to fire their weapons. Red energy beams flared, tearing through the seventh dimension like lightning. These weapons carried enough force to shatter entire planets, but the Archimedes, already moving, was prepared. It didn't engage in a battle of force, it was showing the galaxy what humanity had really discovered, the true power of understanding. Hold on everyone, Captain Stone commanded, his voice barely audible over the growing intensity of the ship's song. Dr. White, show them what a real dimensional ship can do. Dr. White's fingers flew across her console as she took control of the ship's systems, conducting the Archimedes like a maestro leading a symphony. The ship's whole patterns pulsed in perfect rhythm with the dimensional currents that surrounded them. Initiating dimensional harmony sequence, she called out. The first blast from the ancient race's weapon tore through the space where the Archimedes had just been, but the ship wasn't there anymore. It had already shifted, moving to a higher dimension, viewing the space from a completely different perspective. The enemy's attack was not just visible from one angle, it was visible from all angles at once. Impossible, came the transmission from the ancient race, a tone of disbelief in their voice. No ship can move like that. Reed, sitting at the navigation controls, smiled. They still don't understand. We're not moving through space, we're moving with it. The Archimedes song grew stronger, each note vibrating with the power of dimensional space. The ship was no longer just interacting with the space around it, it was part of it, and the ancient race ships couldn't follow. The once imposing crystalline hulls of the enemy ships began to crack and tremble as they struggled to process what they were seeing. We don't need weapons, Dr. White explained, watching the readings with growing excitement. The song of our ship is creating dimensional harmonies. Their forced entry into this space can't handle the resonance. She was right. The ancient race ships began to shake, their movements erratic as the Archimedes' dimensional song rippled through the fabric of space. The distortion caused by their imperfect presence in the seventh dimension made them vulnerable to the very forces they had tried to control. Their systems were failing, unable to maintain their stability in this new space. They're charging their main weapon, the sensor officer reported, his voice tense. They're going to try to destroy everything at once. Captain Stone stood from his chair, his eyes fixed on the approaching enemy ships through the dimensional viewport. He knew the time had come. They couldn't let the ancient races destroy what humanity had just unlocked. Dr. White, he commanded, his voice calm but urgent. Full power to the harmonic drive. Let's show them what happens when you try to force your way through dimensions instead of working with them. The Archimedes song reached its peak, the ship's hull patterns aligning perfectly with the dimensional streams surrounding them. In that moment, the Archimedes wasn't just a ship traveling through dimensions, it had become one with them. It was a part of the space it moved through, flowing seamlessly with the very energy that governed the universe. 5 beams of devastating energy shot from the ancient race ships, converging on the Archimedes. But instead of striking the ship, the beams bent and curved, as if they were following the currents of dimensional space that the Archimedes had become one with. The energy returned to its source, redirected by the ship's resonance. Return to sender, Reed whispered as the Archimedes danced through dimensional space, moving with a grace that the ancient race ships couldn't even begin to comprehend. The energy of their own weapons, now guided by the Archimedes' dimensional harmony, struck their unstable hulls. The crystalline ships shattered, their forced presence in the seventh dimension finally failing. "They're pulling back," the sensor officer called out. "All enemy ships are retreating to normal space." The crew watched through the viewport as the ancient race vessels, once proud and imposing, now cracked and dimmed, limped back to normal space. They fled through the same rough tear in space they had made when they entered, retreating from a dimension they were never truly meant to inhabit. The Archimedes song gentled, shifting to a calmer, more peaceful tone. The builder station pulsed with approving light, and the mathematical streams of dimensional space began to flow smoothly again, healing the disruptions caused by the ancient race ship's violent entry. "Status report?" Stone asked, finally sitting back in his chair, a small but satisfied smile on his face. "No damage to the Archimedes," Dr. White reported, smiling herself. "Our dimensional harmonics worked perfectly. The ship danced exactly as the builders designed it to." The communication officer spoke up, breaking the silence. "Message from Earth Command," he said. "They're asking what happened. The ancient race fleet in normal space is retreating from the entire sector." Stone exchanged a look with his crew, pride evident in his face. "Tell them," he said, his voice filled with quiet confidence, "tell them that humanity just proved why the builders chose us. We didn't win through force. We won through understanding. We showed the galaxy that sometimes, the greatest power comes not from strength, but from harmony. With bigger weapons or stronger shields, humanity could have fought the ancient races, but they hadn't. They had won because they understood something the ancient races never had: the true power of working with the universe rather than trying to control it. And so, after the battle in the seventh dimension, the Archimedes hung peacefully in the vastness of dimensional space. Its song, once a powerful crescendo of struggle and triumph, now resonated as a gentle hum, a symbol of victory not just for humanity but for the entire galaxy. Through the specialized viewers provided by the builders, countless alien species observed the events of the battle. They had seen everything unfold: the clash of powers, the desperation of the ancient races to maintain their dominance, and humanity's calm, deliberate approach to unlocking the true potential of dimensional space. The watching species had expected destruction, but instead they had witnessed something new. A young race had managed to defeat the ancient ones, not through brute force, but by understanding a concept that had eluded the galaxy's oldest civilizations for millennia: the harmony of dimensions. The laughter that had once filled the air, mocking humanity's presence in the galactic stage, had long since stopped. In its place, a new sound reverberated: applause. It was a recognition of humanity's victory, not through strength, but through knowledge and cooperation. Humanity had earned a place among the stars, not by conquering, but by harmonizing with the universe itself. 1 month after the battle of the seventh dimension, the Galactic Council chamber had changed significantly. The ancient races, once proud and seated in the front row, were no longer present. Their crystalline representatives, once the pinnacle of galactic power, were now absent, their damaged ships limping home through normal space, their pride shattered along with their power. Instead, Earth's representatives stood tall, their confidence evident in their posture. Dr. Walker, who had previously spoken to a room full of mocking laughter, stood once again at the speaking platform. But this time there was no laughter. The room was filled with the quiet anticipation of a galaxy that had just witnessed a turning point in its history. Captain Stone and his crew stood with Dr. Walker, their new uniforms proudly displaying the combined symbols of Earth and the Builders, a spiral galaxy wrapped in dimensional patterns. It was a new symbol of unity, not just between humanity and the Builders, but between all the species of the galaxy, a promise of cooperation and shared growth. Dr. Walker addressed the silent council chamber, his voice resonating with the gravity of the moment. "The Builders left us more than just technology," he began, his words measured and deliberate. "They left us a responsibility." He paused, allowing his words to sink in. "The dimensional gates they created were never meant to be weapons or tools of power. They were meant to unite the galaxy." He turned to Captain Stone, who stepped forward to continue. "We discovered the key to dimensional space not through force or dominance, but through understanding," Stone said. His voice rang with the certainty that had guided humanity's journey to this point. "The Archimedes will lead a fleet of training ships, humanity's gift to the galaxy. We will teach others how to dance with dimensions not by controlling them, but by learning to move with them." He gestured toward Dr. White, who activated a holographic display. The hologram showed a network of builder stations scattered across the galaxy, gateways to other dimensions that could connect the stars like never before. The council chamber erupted in excited discussion. Species that had been confined to normal space travel for millennia suddenly saw new possibilities. The dimensional gates, once thought to be a dangerous and elusive mystery, were now within reach, but only if approached with the right understanding. These gates could connect the entire galaxy, Dr. White added, her voice brimming with excitement. But only if they are used with the right approach. Already, 3 young races have shown promising results. She glanced at Reed, who brought up navigation data showing the first successful dimensional jumps by non-human ships, thanks to the new training methods taught by humanity. The data displayed the beauty of each species' approach, as they added their unique notes to the symphony of dimensional space. "We're not the only ones who can dance," Reed said, smiling as he pointed to the screen. "Every species is finding its own rhythm." "Indeed," Dr. White agreed. "The Builder's legacy is not a gift to be hoarded, but a song to be shared." These young races already understand that dimensional travel isn't about power, it's about harmony. A message came through from the Builder station, and it was broadcast across all frequencies. "The young ones teach well. The dance grows stronger." The High Counselor rose, his energy form expanding, glowing with approval. "The Council recognizes Earth as the new custodians of dimensional space. The ancient race's era of dominance is over. A new age begins." The Archimedes remained docked at the first Builder station, now bustling with activity. Ships from dozens of species arrived for training, their designs as diverse as the cultures they represented. Some ships were sleek and angular, others organic, with flowing curves and intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with life. Each vessel was different, but all were designed according to their own unique understanding of dimensional harmony. Reed pointed toward a ship that seemed to be made of living crystal, its surfaces reflecting the cosmic light. "Look at that one," he said. They understood the resonance patterns instantly. "Their whole culture is based on musical mathematics." Dr. White nodded, monitoring the dimensional streams with growing satisfaction. "And that organic ship from the ocean worlds," Dr. White added, eyes tracking the flow of energy. "They already knew how to flow with currents, they just needed to apply it to higher dimensions." Her voice was filled with admiration. "It's all about perspective. The way we move through space changes when we understand the currents, when we listen to the song of the universe." Then came a message, this time from the ancient races. The communication officer's voice was filled with surprise as he announced the message's contents. "We request to learn not as masters but as students. Our pride cost us millions of years of progress. We are ready to listen." Stone raised an eyebrow but nodded. He looked around at his crew, at the faces of those who had taken humanity from a young and ambitious species to the leaders of a galactic movement. There was no hesitation in his answer. "Tell them," he said, "they are welcome to join the next training fleet. Every species has something to teach and something to learn." The Archimedes song merged with the Builder station's energy, creating a beacon of light and sound that could be felt across dimensions. More ships arrived every day, each one adding its own note to the growing symphony of dimensional space. The galaxy was changing, not through war, not through dominance, but through understanding and cooperation. Dr. Walker, reading the latest reports from Earth, smiled as he realized how far humanity had come. The galaxy was beginning to understand the power of harmony, and humanity had led the way. "Ready for the next training run, Captain?" Dr. White asked, her hands hovering over the controls. Stone nodded, settling into his chair. "Take us out, Doctor. Let's show them how to dance among the stars." And with that, the Archimedes moved smoothly into dimensional space, leading a fleet of ships from a dozen different worlds. Their combined songs resonated through the dimensions, creating patterns of mathematical beauty that would forever change the way the galaxy moved through space. The laughter had stopped long ago, and in its place was something better, something that would endure. Harmony.